Behold, the cleanest moon Baghdad has ever seen. Now the city will shine brighter than ever.
A humid, hushed blanket of night draped over Baghdad. The city, usually a cauldron of commerce, was quiet, save for the soft slosh and slip of the Tigris River against its banks. Along a stone-rimmed communal pool, where the washerwomen worked by day and the stars gathered by night, sat Abu Nawas. His customary posture was one of relaxed contemplation, but tonight his brow was furrowed, his gaze fixed, not upon the distant diamond-dotted velvet sky, but upon the water's dark, undulating mirror. The full moon, a grand silver sentinel, shone its brilliant beam down. Yet in the pool's murky depths, its reflection was a sorry sight, a shimmering, silvery smear, constantly breaking and blurring. "Alas, alack!" Abu Nawas suddenly cried, his voice cutting the tranquil silence like a knife through soft cloth. "What great grievous tragedy is this that greets my gaze? A shocking sight, a stunning stain. See how the sublime shining sphere is sullying its serene soul in the sewage of our city's shallow stream?" He sprang up, startling a small skulking cat that had been stalking a shadow. He waved his arms wildly, his long sleeves whipping the cool air. The water's surface, agitated by his sudden movement, convulsed, rendering the moon's mirrored image even more distorted, a wobbly yellowish disk. "The moon is mucky, the moon is murky, the celestial cycle is cluttered with corrosion." A nearby watchman, a massive man named Jafar, known more for his simple strength than his sharp wit, lumbered over, his heavy sandals thud, thud, thud on the cobblestones. "Abu Nawas, what mischief makes you muse so madly at this late hour? Are you again speaking secrets with the shadows?" Abu Nawas spun on the guard, his eyes wide and earnest, the very picture of panicked piety. "Mischief? Nay, friend Jafar, not mischief, but a mission. Look closely at the glorious globe. The sun in its daily transit is too distant to dim, but the moon, our nightly near neighbor, dips its delicate disk into our dust-darkened waters, and lo, it acquires the grime. It gathers the grit. It is clearly and comprehensively caked in cosmic crumbs." The watchman squinted hard at the real moon, a pristine pearl-white orb hanging serenely high. Then he looked at the water, a churning mess now thanks to Abu Nawas's dramatics. "It looks clean to me, master," Jafar said slowly, running a thick, stubby finger across his bearded chin. "The one up there is bright and the one down here is just wavy. Water does that." "Wavy, you say? It is not wavy but weakened. It is not waving but weeping. The moon, poor soul, suffers a silent sickness, a silvery blight brought about by the bad breath and basin sludge of our bustling Baghdad. And if the moon should sicken, so shall our soul suffer. We shall lose our lucky luminescence. We shall walk in woeful, wan shadows. Jafar, this is the gravest governance crisis the cosmos has called forth." The watchman, thoroughly confused by the sheer volume and verbose velocity of the speech, could only mutter, "Cosmic crumbs," and slowly backed away. He decided that confronting Abu Nawas over a dirty moon was above his pay grade, and that a noisy, mad philosopher was less dangerous than a quiet one. But the seed of the idea, absurd yet audaciously articulated, had been sown. Abu Nawas, left alone, began pacing with a fervent, rhythmic stride, clip, clop, when his wooden sandals marking the measure of his mad new task. He muttered plans to himself, full of alliterative authority. "We need massive, meticulous methodology. We must procure purifying powders, a gigantic, glimmering glass goblet for rinsing, and a brush, a truly colossal cleaning contraption, a brush whose bristly bite can banish the blemishes." He spent the rest of the night practicing an imaginary scrubbing motion, his body swaying and swooping, a solitary, ridiculous silhouette against the silvery light of the very moon he claimed to be so hopelessly hampered by the human habitat's haze. The rhythmic scraping sound of his sandals eventually wore down Jafar's patience, but the watchman merely sighed, shook his head, and resolved to tell his colleagues in the morning of Abu Nawas's latest ludicrous lunar lament. The moon, silent and still, seemed to smile down on the fool on earth whose simple observation of a rippled reflection had turned into a spiritual sanitation scheme. Baghdad, the following day, would hear the tale of the soiled celestial satellite, thanks to Abu Nawas's loud, lingering litany. The quiet night had conceived a catastrophe, or rather, a comic crusade. His heart pounded with the promise of tomorrow's performance. His mission, a marvelous mania, was about to begin its monumental march. The sun rose, painting the eastern sky in hues of blazing, brassy gold, but the attention of Baghdad was already fixed on the pale, polluted problem of the previous night. Abu Nawas, far from receding into the shadows of quiet reason, burst into the bustling marketplace like a flamboyant flame. His face was a mask of dramatic distress, and he carried a large, hand-painted banner that read, in sprawling, shaky calligraphy, "Save our satellite, the scourge of soil!" The marketplace was a symphony of sound. The clang of the coppersmith's hammer, the sharp, shrill cries of the spice merchants touting their turmeric and tamarind, the soft shuffling of hundreds of feet, and the rhythmic braying of donkeys laden with dates. Abu Nawas found the tallest crate, climbed upon it, and, with a deep breath, let loose a voice that was both booming and burdened. Hear ye, O people of plenty and of poverty! Do you wonder why your woes accumulate? Why the water wastes? Why the prices climb and the crops crumble? I shall tell you, for I have seen the secret suffering. Our source of serene sleep, our shimmering silver signpost, the moon itself, is grievously grimed. The reflection, that faithful facsimile, is foul. And what stains the shadow surely soils the substance. His words, replete with alliteration, struck the ear like rhythmic drumbeats, drawing a crowd not through logic, but sheer sonic spectacle. A small, simple-minded tailor named Karim, whose clothes were perpetually creased, stepped forward. "But, Master Nawas," Karim whimpered, "if the moon is dirty, how shall we reach it? It is so high, so far. Its altitude is an absolute impossibility." Abu Nawas leaned in conspiratorially, his voice dropping to a theatrical, throaty whisper that carried perfectly to the far corners of the square. "Ah, but that, dear tailor, is the terrible, tempting trap. We cannot touch the true moon. No, that would be sacrilege. But we can cleanse the cosmic conduit. We can purify the principle of reflection. We must wash the mucky moon's mirthful mirror. And for that we need materials of magnificent might." He then launched into a meticulously planned list of ludicrous necessities. "We require a soap. Not any common commodity, but a crystalline cleanser crushed from the clearest quartz and condensed with the concentrated essence of 1,000 roses. A soap so superb it shall surely soothe the celestial sphere. We need a brush, not a flimsy, futile thing, but a colossal curved contraption, a brush with bristles braided from the beards of 10 benevolent goats, strong enough to scrub the scars of a star. And finally, a ladder so long, so lean, so loftily lengthy that its very look shall lend legitimacy to our lunar labor." The sheer scope of the project, combined with Abu Nawas's passionate, pulsing delivery, began to sway the less educated in the crowd. They started murmuring amongst themselves, their voices a low, conspiratorial hiss. "The moon did look a bit dull last night. Perhaps the master speaks a spiritual truth. A dirty moon is bad luck indeed." Meanwhile, high up in the gilded Grand Palace, the Khalifa Harun al-Rashid was being briefed by his perpetually puzzled vizier, Jafar, a different, more important Jafar. "Your Majesty, Abu Nawas is now demanding a golden scrub brush and a soap distilled from diamonds. He claims the lunar luster is lacking." The Khalifa threw back his head and roared with laughter, a rich rolling sound that echoed through the marble halls. "Oh, that magnificent madman, a lunar launderer! Let him have his theater, vizier. The people are shuffling their feet and chuckling their cares away. A few golden coins for a cosmic comedy is a price I willingly pay. Send word that I shall endorse his endeavor, provided the tools are truly as absurd as his ambitions." Thus, with the Khalifa's amused assent, Abu Nawas's ridiculous request was granted a bizarre form of official sanction. He immediately began his preparations, his heart beating a fast, festive thump-thump of anticipation. The carpenter was ordered to build a ladder of unimaginable, yet utterly impractical length. The soap maker was instructed to create the most expensive, purely cosmetic bar of soap ever conceived. Abu Nawas stood over them, his directions crisp and commanding, ensuring every detail of his cleansing contraptions was as comical and costly as possible. He was not preparing for a chore, he was choreographing a spectacle. The stage was set, the audience was primed, and the tools of the trade were being forged in the fires of folly. The task of securing the celestial equipment became a performance in itself, a delightful dance of deception and donation, full of the clinking and clanking of coin. Abu Nawas, now armed with the Khalifa's tacit approval, targeted the wealthiest and most pompous citizens of Baghdad, the merchants whose coffers overflowed and whose consciences were perpetually undernourished. His strategy was simple: appealed to their pride, their fear of celestial retribution, and their desperate desire for public validation. His first target was merchant Hassan, a man whose love of gold was only surpassed by his fear of being perceived as poor. Abu Nawas approached Hassan's villa, walking slowly and solemnly, his face etched with profound, prayerful pity. He found Hassan counting silver dirhams, the rattle of the coins a soft music to his greedy ears. "Master Hassan," Abu Nawas whispered, his voice dripping with false intimacy, "I come to you not as a beggar, but as a blesser. The moon, source of all success in silver and spice, is sick, and the cost of its cure, though colossal, shall confer celestial credits upon the benefactor." Hassan, annoyed by the interruption to his count, grumbled, "Costly, Abu Nawas? How costly can a cloth and a pail be? Be gone! I have ledgers to list and prices to ponder." Abu Nawas shook his head sadly, letting out a deep, dramatic sigh that seemed to drain the very air from the room. "Alas, Master Hassan, this is not common chimney cleaning. This is cosmic cleansing. We require the karmic crubbing queep." "The what?" Hassan sputtered, dropping a coin that rolled away with a frantic tinkle. "The karmic crubbing queep," Abu Nawas repeated, emphasizing the rhythmic alliteration. "A brush of unbelievable breadth, its bristles bound in pure blue silk, meant to scrub the blemishes from the face of the firmament. It costs a king's ransom. But imagine, dear Hassan, when future generations look up, they will say, 'Ah, the clarity of the crescent. This is the legacy of the charitable, conscientious Hassan.' Your contribution will be etched not in stone, but in starlight." The thought of eternal, celestial advertisement pricked Hassan's pride. He envisioned his name, somehow associated with the moon's brilliance, shining brighter than his rivals. He reluctantly, repeatedly released a portion of his purse. The negotiations were a masterful comedy of errors, with Abu Nawas refusing low offers with theatrical gasp and then accepting slightly higher ones with a humble, holy nod. The merchant finally yielded a substantial sum for the queep and its colossal companion, the lunar lather, a bar of soap so large it had to be wheeled in a cart. Next, Abu Nawas needed the ridiculous reaching ladder. He approached the Grand Vizier's secretary, an officious, overzealous man named Omar, who obsessed over protocol and paperwork. Omar listened, stiff as a starched shroud, as Abu Nawas described the need for a ladder so tall that it would almost graze the great gray clouds. "But Master Nawas," Omar droned, his voice devoid of rhythm or rhyme, "a ladder of that length requires a permit, 3 affidavits, an environmental impact study on the atmosphere, and approval from the Royal Guild of Elevated Engineers. Furthermore, the structural integrity—" "Integrity!" Abu Nawas burst out, cutting the bureaucratic buzz short. "Where is the integrity in an unwashed moon? Omar, think of your papers. If the moon is dirty, the ink will surely smudge, the contracts will curdle, the signatures will sink. This ladder is not merely wood and rope, it is the stairway to serene standards. It is insurance against an administrative apocalypse. Donate, dear Omar. Let your devotion to documentation decree your decision." Terrified that the lunar filth might somehow migrate to his meticulously filed parchments, Omar panicked and signed the requisition for the longest, flimsiest, most uselessly tall ladder the royal workshop could produce. The workers, confused but compliant, began assembling the ridiculous structure, its segments clicking and scraping as they were pieced together. By the end of the day, Abu Nawas possessed his full arsenal: the massive, brightly colored, and utterly useless karmic-crubbing queep, the fragrant, foot-high lunar lather, and the ridiculous, rumbling, reaching riser, the ladder. He had spent vast sums, but all of it was cheerfully, if reluctantly, provided by those seeking favor on earth and, ludicrously, in heaven. He walked home, the sounds of his collected treasures, the rattle of the cart, the creak of the huge brush, a merry melody of monetary manipulation and magnificent mischief. The first phase, the securing of the spectacular, was complete. The stage was set for the scandal. The day that followed was declared by popular consensus and Abu Nawas's relentless self-promotion as the Day of Celestial Cleansing. From dawn, a vast, vibrant wave of humanity began to flow toward the chosen site, a large, centrally located square that held a deep, ancient stone pool. The crowd was enormous, a living tapestry of the city, their collective hum and hush creating a pervasive, powerful auditory backdrop. The poor came for the spectacle, the rich came to ensure their generous donations were duly noted, and the board simply came because Baghdad's best source of amusement was about to begin its highest act. The area surrounding the pool was meticulously prepared. The enormous, multi-sectioned ladder, the rumbling, reaching riser, stood precariously close to the pool, towering into the sky like a shaky monument to hubris. Beside it, the colossal, colorful brush, the karmic crubbing queep, was propped up, its blue silk bristles catching the morning sun. The air was already thick with anticipation, and the sweet, sickly scent of the foot-high lunar lather bar wafted over the masses. Abu Nawas, dressed in robes of shimmering, sapphire blue, ascended a small elevated platform. He looked less like a washerman and more like a high priest addressing his supplicants. He waited until the collective murmur subsided into a heavy, expectant silence. The only sounds were the light lips of the pool water and the occasional cough from the back rows. He began his oration, a masterpiece of pompous, pulsating poetry, his voice ringing with theatrical urgency. "O citizens of this city, we stand at the precipice of purification. We have suffered the stain of the celestial satellite. The moon, our beacon of beauty, has borne the burden of our terrestrial tarnish, but today we ascend. Today we scrub. Today we silence the sorrow of the soiled sphere. Let the whispers cease. Let the weeping wane. Let the world witness the washing of the woes." His rhythmic repetition and alliterative fervor sent shivers through the crowd. They cheered, a sudden sharp roar of approval. Just as the applause faded, a scholarly man, Professor Hamid, famed for his meticulous mind and dry diction, pushed his way to the front. He adjusted his spectacles, cleared his throat with a precise paper-dry scrape, and spoke in a thin, technical voice. "Master Abu Nawas, I must interject with an intellectual inquiry. The moon, sir, is a sphere of barren rock, devoid of atmospheric or aqueous components. Its perceived dirtiness is a mere optical illusion caused by atmospheric diffraction and the disturbance of the reflecting medium. To scrub the reflection in the water is, logically speaking, a highly inefficient, indeed, an entirely ineffective expenditure of effort and expense." The crowd quieted, momentarily confused by the sudden insertion of sober scientific sense. The professor's words were dull, but undeniably accurate. Abu Nawas did not miss a beat. He fixed the professor with a look of profound, patronizing pity. "Ah, Professor Hamid, how sad! How utterly and unequivocally sterile is the soul of the scholar who sees only stone where others see spirit. You speak of optical illusion, but I speak of overt opposition. I speak of the spiritual smudge. The moon," Abu Nawas declared, spreading his hands wide, "is the eye of heaven, and what good is an eye that is gunged and grimy? Your logic, good sir, is like a lute without strings, correct in its construction, but completely incapable of producing a cheerful chime. The people do not seek logic today, Professor. They seek luminosity. They seek light. They seek the simple, satisfying sensation of a sphere so stunningly scrubbed it shall shame the sun." He paused dramatically, letting the sheer force of his rhetoric crush the professor's quiet critique. The crowd, delighted by the defeat of dry reason, broke out in another wave of laughter and shouts. The professor, flushed with indignation, but out-argued by the superior spectacle, retreated with a defeated huff. Abu Nawas then turned to the ridiculously tall ladder. With a sweeping gesture, he instructed two sturdy assistants to secure the base. He picked up the massive silly brush, the karmic crubbing queep, and began his ascent, a slow, deliberate climb that was fraught with theatrical danger. The ladder creaked and groaned under his weight, its wooden structure protesting the ridiculous height. The crowd watched, breathless, as the master prankster prepared to perform the impossible, ready to witness either a miracle or a magnificent fall. The ascent of the rumbling, reaching riser was a performance piece in two parts: the slow, strenuous climb and the highly stylized, simulated scrubbing. Abu Nawas, a man of modest girth, made the impossible ladder's creak and groan sound like the distressed wail of a wounded beast. Every joint, every rickety rope railing seemed to protest his progress, amplifying the drama for the vast crowd below. The sheer impracticality of the structure was transformed into a testament to his dedication. Surely, a man risking such a height for a ridiculous cause must be genuinely mad or divinely inspired. He climbed until he reached a height that placed him safely above the nearest rooftop, yet still astronomically far from the actual moon. He stopped, clinging to the top rung, swaying gently in the subtle breeze. A collective, anxious gasp rose from the square. "Hark!" Abu Nawas cried, his voice slightly strained but still carrying. "The atmosphere itself resists. It wrestles with the weight of the water. It warps and wanes against the will of the washerman." He began his pantomime. Holding the colossal brush, the karmic crubbing queep, he would lunge forward into the empty air, then pull back sharply, feigning resistance. The brush, far too heavy to wield easily, became a sentient foe in his hands. He made the sound of his breath a major part of the auditory experience. Deep, theatrical huffs and puffs, followed by short, sharp, triumphant shouts. The crowd below was mesmerized. When he swayed dangerously, a wave of distressed murmurs would ripple through the square. When he successfully completed a simulated scrub, a ferocious, focused whish of the brush through the air, a burst of excited applause would erupt. He targeted an imaginary spot just above the horizon, demonstrating tremendous effort in cleaning what he called the moon's most mischievous muck spots, the regions of highest refraction. In the middle of his fervent flailing, Abu Nawas deliberately lost his footing. His entire body listed to the side, and the ladder tilted, causing a terrifying, tearing crack from one of the wooden stabilizers. The crowd let out a single piercing scream of panic. The assistants below scrambled desperately to steady the base. Recovering, with a magnificent, exaggerated effort, Abu Nawas turned to the crowd, his face shiny with sweat and mock terror. "The moon fights back! The lunar legions resist the lather! The gravitational grip is strong! This is an effort of epic, exhausting excellence! But alas!" He slowly, mournfully descended a few rungs, the sounds of his sandals scuffing against the wood emphasizing his defeat. He landed heavily on the platform, his robes catching the dust. The karmic crubbing queep fell to the ground with a soft, dull thud. He declared the aerial effort a necessary, preliminary show of strength, but ultimately futile. "The upper air is too abrasive. The altitude is too arrogant. The sheer scale of the celestial spot is simply stunning. We cannot reach the source. We must therefore clean the spiritual mirror. We must purify the principle of the polluted portal. The washing shall proceed, but now in the water below." The failure to reach the moon was not a defeat, but a pivot, seamlessly integrated into the unfolding spectacle. The crowd, relieved he was safe and eager for the next stage, cheered his decision, their voices a joyous, resonating wave. The focus of the great cleansing crusade now shifted from the impossible height of the ladder to the murky depths of the communal pool. Abu Nawas commanded his assistants to bring forward the lunar lather, the enormous, foot-high bar of custom soap, fragrant and fantastically expensive. The soap was hoisted high, catching the sunlight, and carried with a solemn procession, its weight causing the carriers to huff and strain. "Behold," cried Abu Nawas, his voice restored to full, vibrant volume, "the very essence of cleanliness, the quintessence of purity. This bar contains the benediction of 1,000 bathhouses compressed into a single colossal cube. We shall not scrub the moon's face, for it is too far, but we shall scrub its faithful facsimile. We shall lather the liquid lens through which we view its luminous likeness." The crowd leaned in, their collective breathing shallow and sharp with excitement. Abu Nawas then performed a magnificent mock sacrificial ritual. He held the massive bar of soap aloft, prayed dramatically, then plunged the lunar lather into the pool with a colossal splash. The water surged outwards, wetting the front rows of the audience, who responded with squeals of delighted shock. Immediately, the soap began its work. Because of its intense, concentrated composition, the pool rapidly began to foam. Abu Nawas, seizing the moment, instructed his assistants to throw in large bucketfuls of water, churning the mixture vigorously with long poles. The sound was a mesmerizing swish and gurgle, quickly overwhelmed by the rising tide of bubbles. Within moments, the entire surface of the large pool was covered in a thick, mountainous mound of pristine, pearly white foam. It was a snowdrift in the summer sun, a magnificent, milky mass that began to swell and spill over the edges of the stone rim, creeping like a slow, shimmering glacier across the square. The scent of roses and quartz, overwhelming yet pleasant, hung heavy in the air. The sight was intoxicating. Children, utterly unable to resist the enormous, enticing expanse of bubbles, broke through the perimeter guards with shrieks of joyful abandon. They dove into the foam, their high-pitched giggles and splashing sounds adding a chaotic, cheerful coda to Abu Nawas's solemn ceremony. Soon they were followed by playful adults who began tossing handfuls of foamy froth into the air, creating a blizzard of buoyant bubbles. Abu Nawas, standing above the chaotic carnival, did not scold them. Instead, he raised his hands in a gesture of pleased permission, acting as the benevolent conductor of this sudden, sudsy storm. "Let the spirit of the cleansing spread," he boomed. "Let the lather reach the land. For every bubble that bursts, a blight shall be banished. For every drop of the divine detergent, a disaster shall diminish." The square had dissolved into a scene of beautiful, buoyant madness. The noise was immense, the pop of countless bubbles, the slap of foam against the cobblestones, the high, happy cries of the participants. The pool water itself, beneath the blanket of foam, was now being thoroughly agitated and filtered by the intense action, becoming genuinely cleaner than it had been before. Abu Nawas watched the beautiful chaos, his eyes twinkling. He had managed to transform a foolish, failed attempt to reach the sky into a massive municipal bath party, paid for entirely by the rich and enjoyed entirely by the commoners. The fizz of the soap was the sound of successful satire. The height of the foam frenzy eventually subsided. As the sun climbed higher, the massive mountain of suds began to melt and settle, a process punctuated by the soft, diminishing sizzle and sigh of millions of bursting bubbles. The children emerged from the pool, dripping and delighted, leaving behind a massive shallow depression filled with the now still relatively clear water. The cleansing ritual, in its chaotic way, was complete. Abu Nawas approached the edge of the pool with a serious, searching expression. The moment of truth, the presentation of the evidence, was at hand. He needed proof of his cosmic conquest, tangible residue of the moon's filth. He looked down into the water, now relatively transparent, save for the undisturbed sediment settled at the very bottom. He pointed a dramatic finger at the bottommost layer of the pool bed, a dark, viscous mixture of silt, leaves, and ancient filth that the vigorous scrubbing had not fully dispersed. "Silence!" he commanded, his voice sharp and suddenly severe, cutting through the remaining chuckle and chatter of the crowd. "Silence and see! Look upon the lamentable leavings! Observe the awful aftermath! The moon's misery is manifested!" He directed his assistants to procure a large, ornamental, silver-plated basin, one of the very objects he had persuaded merchant Hassan to donate. Using a long, ceremonial wooden ladle, Abu Nawas began to scoop the thick, sticky sludge from the deepest, dirtiest crevices of the pool floor, careful to avoid the cleaner upper layer of water. The sound of the ladle scraping the rough stone bottom was a slow, deliberate scrape shush, instantly drawing the collective focus of the thousands of eyes watching. He raised the first scoop high, a dripping, dark, disgusting mass of sludge and silt. He held it carefully over the silver basin, letting the water slowly drain away, leaving behind a thick, clotted composite of earth and unrecognizable debris. "This," Abu Nawas announced, his voice ringing with scientific solemnity, "this is not common clay. This is not mere muck from the municipal matter. Nay, this is the cosmic crud, the stellar scum, the actual atmospheric accretion scraped from the very surface of the satellite by the powerful purification of the lunar lather." He rotated the basin for the crowd to see. The deep brown, glistening, undeniably foul material was a powerful visual argument. The collective gasp from the crowd was a mixture of disgust and awe. The simple, visible proof that something dirty had been removed overruled all of Professor Hamid's logical lunar geometry. They had seen the dirt. They had felt the power of the soap. The conclusion was inevitable. "The moon," Abu Nawas concluded, setting the basin down with a reverent clunk, "is now relieved of its residue. The celestial spirit is once more serene. The work is done, my friends. The great washing is completed, and the heavens are, thanks to your generous contributions and our colossal cleaning effort, completely and conceptually clean." A massive cheer erupted from the crowd, a deafening sound of communal relief and shared accomplishment. They had witnessed a miracle of mundane mechanics, a great civic absurdity that had resulted in the visible extraction of celestial contaminants. The children ran to the basin to get a closer look at the moon dirt, their tiny footsteps pattering on the wet stone. Abu Nawas, the master of theatrical truth, had provided the undeniable physical evidence, and the people of Baghdad, satisfied and spectacularly entertained, believed him wholeheartedly. The news of the moon's miraculous decontamination and the subsequent production of the cosmic crud was the talk of Baghdad for days. It was inevitable that the story, embellished with every telling, would reach the ears of the Khalifa Harun al-Rashid, who had followed the affair with increasing amusement from his lofty chambers. The Khalifa, a monarch who valued wit and wisdom equally, and especially enjoyed them when mixed with a large dose of mischief, promptly summoned Abu Nawas to the palace. The audience was not a trial, but a convivial inquiry. Abu Nawas was led into the gilded, grand reception hall, the floor polished to such a sheen that his own reflection seemed to shimmer at his feet. The Khalifa sat on his throne, his eyes sparkling with mirth, while the serious Vizier Jafar stood rigidly beside him, still faintly perplexed by the entire affair. "Ah, Abu Nawas, my faithful friend and cosmic cleaner," the Khalifa boomed, his voice a rich, rolling bass. "You stand before me not accused of folly, but acclaimed as a phenomenal performer. Tell me truly, honestly, look me in the eye, madman, did you truly wash the moon?" Abu Nawas dropped to his knees, not in fear, but in exaggerated humility, the soft swish of his robes echoing in the vast chamber. "Your Majesty, how could this humble servant, a mere mortal muddied by the mundane, presume to touch the majestic moon itself? Nay, Your Majesty, that would be a sacrilege of significant size." The Khalifa leaned forward, a conspiratorial grin spreading across his face. "Then what, pray tell, was the purpose of the rumbling, reaching riser, and where, oh where, did you acquire the cosmic crud that now sits, quite smellily, in a silver basin in the marketplace?" Abu Nawas rose partially, bowing deeply. His voice, now soft and measured, held a profound, quiet wisdom, devoid of the aggressive alliteration he used on the crowds. "Your Majesty, I merely observed the nature of perception. The moon, truly, is the flowless pearl of the night. But when that pearl gazes down upon our city, it uses the pool as its mirror. And if the mirror is muddy, the reflection is miserable. My task was not to clean the original, but to polish the portal. I purified the water, Your Majesty, the grandest glass in Baghdad. The cosmic crud was merely the mundane muck of our city, which, when dramatically removed, served as the proof of purity in the minds of the people. He paused, letting his quiet wit settle. The people, Your Majesty, do not want to hear that a reflection is merely an optical effect. They want to know that a problem, however distant, has been decisively solved. I gave them a glorious, good-humored solution that brought joy and laughter to the entire city. And for that, I used the money of those who needed a public show of piety more than they needed their purses. The Khalifa burst into a magnificent, sustained roar of approval, slapping his thigh with delight. The sound filled the hall, making the Vizier Jafar jump slightly. Magnificent! A true genius of mischief! You have proved that appearance, when properly performed, trumps reality. You have given Baghdad a day of pure, playful pleasure. You have, in essence, cleansed the soul of the city, not the satellite of the sky. He ordered his servants to bring forth a heavy pouch. The pouch, tossed onto the marble floor, landed with a heavy, satisfying clink and jingle of gold coins. Take this, Abu Nawas. It is not for washing the moon, but for washing away the weariness of the Khalifa. Go now and plot your next great, ridiculous reality. Abu Nawas accepted the pouch with a humble nod, the heavy weight of the gold a pleasant reassurance in his palm. He backed away gracefully, his heart singing with success. He had cleaned nothing, yet gained everything, proving once more that the greatest wealth is often found not in wisdom, but in well-timed, witty absurdity. The victory of Abu Nawas, however hilarious, left a sour, stinging sediment in the heart of the Grand Vizier Jafar. Jafar, a man whose life was dictated by ledgers, loyalty, and the literal letter of the law, could not tolerate the sheer successful scandal of the situation. He felt personally insulted by the public's cheers, which he interpreted as a silent condemnation of his own dry, dutiful administration. He paced his private study, his silk slippers hissing softly against the mosaic floor, the rhythmic sound a measure of his mounting malice. A simple trick, a cheap charlatan's chuckle, Jafar muttered to himself, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. He used our gold, wasted royal resources on a ludicrous ladder and a ludicrous lather, and then presented common sludge as a celestial spoil. The Khalifa laughs, yes, but the integrity of the imperial treasury has been utterly undermined. I must mount a counterattack, a sharp, strategic strike that shatters the simpleton's standing. His gaze, cold and clinical, drifted toward the arched window where the night sky was beginning to display its silent show. It had been several days since the day of celestial cleansing. The moon, no longer full, was now a distinct, developing crescent, a sliver of silver brilliance against the backdrop of black velvet. The natural cycle of the lunar phases, a reliable, predictable cosmic calendar, gave Jafar the sharp, subtle weapon he needed. He consulted Professor Hamid, the disgruntled scholar who had been publicly humiliated by Abu Nawas's rhythmic rhetoric in the marketplace. Hamid, still smarting from the stinging defeat of logic by laughter, eagerly accepted Jafar's summons. The professor arrived, his spectacles gleaming with vengeful anticipation, his manner dry as desert sand. Vizier, the moon is currently in its waning crescent phase, a natural phenomenon, utterly unconnected to human action. But To the uneducated eye, the appearance is damning. If one claims to have cleaned a platter that was full, and that platter is now perceived as broken, the blame must surely fall upon the careless cleaner. We shall argue that Abu Nawas's immense brush, the karmic crubbing queep, was too coarse, that his lunar lather was too strong, that the scrubbing was so rigorous, so reckless, that it actually removed a massive, magnificent chunk of the satellite's silvery structure. Jafar nodded slowly, the grim satisfaction spreading across his features. Excellent, Professor. We shall call the citizens back to the square. Abu Nawas claimed to solve the problem of dirt. We shall accuse him of creating a problem of destruction. This time, the laughter will turn to legitimate lament. This time, the joke is on the juggler of jests. The plan was set. Jafar used the authority of his office to declare an urgent, unexpected evening proclamation. Couriers were dispatched, their horses clattering quickly through the twilight streets. The message was urgent, dramatic, and perfectly poised to pique the people's panic. Return to the cleansing square. The moon's integrity is imperiled. The recent washing has wrought a worrying wound. The vizier felt a sudden sharp thrill of power. For once, the celestial calendar was aligning perfectly with his political agenda. Abu Nawas, the king of comedy, was about to face a crisis of cosmic proportions, trapped not by reality, but by the very ridiculous rules of his own invented ritual. His heart was thumping with anticipatory triumph.
The marketplace square filled rapidly once more, the crowd drawn back by the irresistible lure of a celestial scandal. Their collective mood, however, was dramatically different from the prior event. The atmosphere was no longer buoyant and bubbly. It was heavy, hushed, and laced with genuine anxiety. Their murmurs were deep and concerned, carrying a fearful undertone of religious doubt and civic worry. The simple, satisfying sensation of a clean moon had been replaced by the shocking sight of a moon that was visibly incomplete. Vizier Jafar, impeccably dressed and radiating severe sincerity, stood upon the same platform where Abu Nawas had orchestrated his triumph. He pointed dramatically upward, his voice cutting the heavy silence like a razor's edge. "Citizens of Baghdad, look!" Jafar commanded, the single simple syllable striking the stone walls of the square. "Behold the beautiful, beloved moon. Is it full? Is it perfect? Is it the pristine pearl that Abu Nawas promised? Nay!" He paused for dramatic effect, letting the collective gasp of the crowd swell and subside. "It is broken, it is blemished, it is severely, visibly severed." When Abu Nawas applied his immense abrasive karmic crubbing, was he scrubbing away dirt, or was he scraping away the sacred substance itself? Was his lunar lather a cleanser or a corrosive compound? The evidence is undeniable. The very physical force of his foolish foray has chiseled a huge heavenly chunk from our nightly nightlight. A woman in the crowd cried out, her voice a sharp, frightened shriek. "The light is less, the shadows lengthen. The crop yields will surely crumble if the circularity is compromised." The fear spread like wildfire, fueled by Jafar's authoritative tone and the undeniable visual proof above. Abu Nawas, who had arrived late, having been enjoying the fruits of his previous labor, pushed his way calmly through the agitated masses. He stood below the platform, not bothering to climb, his posture relaxed, his eyes twinkling in the moonlight. He let the wave of panic wash over him, listening to the resonant rhetoric of his rival. When Jafar finished his indictment, Abu Nawas simply smiled, stretched slowly, and addressed the crowd in a voice that was casual yet commanding, full of comforting, careful cadence. Vizier Jafar speaks with the seriousness of a cemetery superintendent, dear friends, but with the sense of a squirrel selling silk stockings. Is the moon broken? Is it bashed? Is it battered by my beautiful brush? Absolutely not. He took a deep breath and then unveiled his impromptu, absurd explanation, a masterpiece of quick-witted construction and cosmic comedy. The moon, my friends, is not broken, it is merely damp. It is experiencing the natural phenomenon of a celestial shrinkage cycle. Shrinkage? Boomed Jafar, utterly baffled, the word sounding ridiculous against his formal delivery. Indeed, cried Abu Nawas. Think, good people, what happens when you wash a wool blanket, a thick, woven wonder that covers your world? Does it not shrink in the water? Does it not pull inward as it dries? The moon, my friends, after its colossal cleansing by the concentrated lunar lather, is simply drying in the night air. The water, the residual rinsing, causes the celestial fabric to contract, pulling the edges inward. The darker part you see is merely the wet shadow where the silvery wool is still shrunken. Do not fear the missing piece, Vizier. It is not gone. It is merely gathered. It is not destroyed. It is simply dense. Once it is thoroughly dry, the glorious globe will smooth itself out and return to its full fleshy form. He spread his hands wide. We must be patient. We must let the celestial sphere complete its cosmic cure. The washing was a success, friends. The drying is merely the necessary next stage. Be happy. The moon is clean, and soon it will be complete. Any attempt to fix it now would be like stretching a silk robe before it's dry, a disaster of disproportionate dimensions. Despite the temporary triumph of the shrunken moon theory, Abu Nawas knew that pure rhetoric could only postpone the inevitable. The moon was shrinking now, but soon it would begin to grow again, only to vanish entirely during the new moon phase. He needed a proactive, preventative plan that could manage the final stage of the lunar cycle, the disappearance, and credit his ingenuity, not nature's inexorable motion. He needed a final, spectacular solution to the problem of the partial platter. The people are poised for perfection, Abu Nawas mused to his faithful, but often confounded assistants. He paced the courtyard, his sandals making a soft, scratchy shh sound on the gravel. They believe the moon is a wet blanket, but soon they will see the blanket entirely vanish. The drying metaphor will turn to dread. Jafar will claim I not only scrubbed off a piece, but accidentally dissolved the entire satellite. We must not wait for the return of the full moon. We must force its final, flawless, full appearance. He conceived his most ambitious and absurd contraption yet, the solar scrubber and silver plating portal. His new theory, which he began to whisper into the ears of select sensation-seeking merchants, was complex and captivating. The moon, in its shrunken state, requires not drying, but replating. The aggressive scrubbing removed the original ancient silver finish, leaving the moon's dark, bare rock exposed. This is the darkness we now see. We must use the most powerful energy source, the sun, and redirect its light to re-silver the moon's surface. His focus shifted back to the wealthiest donor, Merchant Hassan, who still wished to see his charitable contribution reflected in the celestial sphere. Abu Nawas approached Hassan's villa again, this time with a diagram drawn on a large, dirty scroll. A comical drawing of the moon being polished by a massive mirror. "Master Hassan," Abu Nawas declared,
his voice a tone of scientific urgency mixed with spiritual opportunity. "The moon's silver skin has been stripped bare. We require a magnificent mirror, a colossal concave constructor, a giant lens to gather the sun's gold-plated gleam and project it, via the purified pool, onto the shrinking section. We shall use the light of the day to forge the light of the night. This is your chance for gold-gilded glory. Your generosity will literally become the glow. Every shimmer will sing your sacred contribution." Hassan, already invested in the spectacle and terrified of being blamed for funding the moon's demise, reluctantly agreed to fund the solar scrubber. The project required a gigantic, highly polished sheet of copper, hammered flat and finished with a thin layer of expensive silver, a truly colossal piece of reflective art designed to catch and project light. The cost was astronomical, forcing Hassan to part with a staggering clutch of coins, the jingle of which was painfully loud in his ears. The royal workshop, now permanently perplexed by Abu Nawas's demands, set to work. They hammered and polished the immense copper sheet until it gleamed, a magnificent, mobile mirror that had to be transported on a massive, slow-moving cart, its surface reflecting the whole city in a distorted, swirling flash. Abu Nawas directed the installation of this solar scrubber near the communal pool. He positioned it carefully, facing the sun, explaining that the sunlight had to be conditioned by the purified water before being sent skyward. The final day of preparation arrived, a brilliant, blazing day that made the reflective surface of the copper mirror dazzle and dance. The stage was ready for the penultimate performance, an attempt to control the cosmos with a curved sheet of costly metal, designed to give the moon a new, brilliant, blinding finish. Abu Nawas looked at the mirror, then at the sky, his grin wider than a full moon itself. He knew the natural cycle was about to turn in his favor, and he was ready to claim the credit for nature's beautiful, benevolent beneficence. The day Abu Nawas chose for the solar scrubber activation was timed perfectly, a mere day or two before the moon was due to re-emerge from its new moon phase, naturally showing a faint, fine sliver of light. The crowd gathered, their anticipation heightened by Vizier Jafar's desperate last-ditch attempt to intervene. Jafar, unable to stop the performance, could only attend, his face a grim mask of controlled contempt. He stood rigid, his robes stiff, his eyes burning with disbelief. He watched as Abu Nawas, now dressed in white robes that made him seem luminous, climbed atop a specially constructed wooden stand that held the massive silver-plated solar scrubber. The mirror's polished surface reflected the brilliant noon sun, throwing a blazing, blinding flash of light across the square and onto the purified pool. "Behold, good people!" Abu Nawas roared, raising his hands, his voice vibrating with power. "The final fix! We used the sun's sacred strength to seal the moon's surface. The original silver was scrubbed away, but now we forge a new, stronger, shinier sheet of silver light. Watch closely as the concentrated celestial energy is focused by this magnificent mirror. We are not washing now, we are welding. We are creating the moon's golden grin." Abu Nawas spent the next hour performing a magnificent pantomime of precision. He adjusted the mirror with elaborate, tiny movements, making loud, dramatic strains and grunts of effort, pretending to direct the blinding beam of light toward the moon's supposed dark, shrunken regions. The crowd watched the bright, reflected light dance on the water, then shoot into the sky, feeling a profound sense of connection to the cosmic machinery. They felt the power of the sun being harnessed, convinced that they were witnessing the replating of the planetary pearl. The solar scrubber was a success purely because of its spectacular scale and stunning shine. That evening, the moment of truth arrived. The sun set, leaving the sky a deep indigo void. The crowd gathered once last, nervous energy buzzing in the twilight air. Vizier Jafar watched from his balcony, waiting for the moon to fail to appear, ready to declare Abu Nawas a fraud and a thief. But as the night deepened, there was a faint, flawless, incredibly thin sliver of silvery white light hanging delicately in the western sky, the crescent moon, naturally beginning its return to fullness. A moment of hushed awe descended upon the square. Then a massive, thunderous cheer erupted, a sound of profound relief and magnificent faith. Abu Nawas, already positioned on his platform, spread his arms wide, encompassing the crescent moon with a majestic gesture. "The golden grin is complete," he cried triumphantly. "The moon's magnificent metal is remade. The dark, damaged areas have been restored by the sun's shine. The great cleaning is finished, the great drying is done, and the great replating is complete. Look upon the brilliance, good citizens. Our moon is new, polished, and protected by the combined cleverness of Baghdad and the cosmos." Jafar, defeated by the clockwork of the heavens, could only turn away from the window, his lips pressed into a thin, furious line. His plan had relied on the moon remaining hidden, but nature, assisted by Abu Nawas's impeccable timing, had betrayed him. But next day, the Khalifa summoned Abu Nawas again, not for questioning, but to bestow a title. "Abu Nawas," the Khalifa declared, laughter radiating from his throne, "you are no longer merely a court poet. You are now the official royal lunar launderer and celestial silver plater. You have proved that belief is a bank and spectacle is its surest currency. Your genius lies in giving the people the glorious gift of a ridiculous answer to an ancient question. Go now and spend your gold. You have earned every jingle and clink." Abu Nawas bowed, clutching his new title and his new wealth. He had not merely washed a reflection, he had washed away the people's worries and the vizier's last shred of sanity, achieving his final fantastic victory through the simple, stunning power of witty, wondrous, widespread absurdity. The sweet, lingering taste of victory and the heavy, satisfying chink of the Khalifa's gold did little to soothe the savage, simmering fury of Grand Vizier Jafar. To be defeated not once, but twice, by a poet whose only weapon was ludicrously layered language and perfectly timed theatrical stunts was a personal, professional, and profound humiliation. His reputation, built on decades of dry, diligent dedication, was now being undercut by the public's perpetual giggle and guffaw whenever Abu Nawas's name was mentioned. The title bestowed upon the trickster, royal lunar launderer and celestial silver plater, felt like a sarcastic slap delivered directly to Jafar's stiff, starched collar. Jafar retreated to the cool, cloistered silence of his private chambers, pacing with a feverish, frustrated scuff. He ignored the mountains of meticulously ordered parchments and the steady stream of supplicants. His singular focus was revenge, but it had to be subtle, surgical, and utterly undeniable. The previous attacks failed because they targeted the sky, a domain that, being distant and predictable, always favored Abu Nawas's opportunistic timing. This new assault had to target the substance, the physical proof that Abu Nawas had paraded before the masses. "He used sludge," Jafar hissed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "Common, contaminated clay. He claimed it was the cosmic crud, the very residue of the satellite's scouring. If I cannot disprove the reflection, I shall expose the refuse. I shall shatter the sham by demanding the shameful substance itself." He summoned Professor Hamid again, the scholar's face a picture of chronic consternation and conspiratorial craving. Jafar outlined his cunning clinical plan, his voice low and firm, the sound of steel sliding into place. "Professor, Abu Nawas claimed to have extracted the stellar scum and the atmospheric accretion, a material of unimaginable celestial composition. Such a substance must not be left to ferment in a mere silver basin in the marketplace. It belongs in the imperial treasury, where its monetary and metaphysical properties can be meticulously measured. Its weight must be verified, its essence assayed, and its value assessed for tax purposes. A simple, silent seizure of the sludge is the only way to seal the charlatan's fate." Hamid nodded, his eyes gleaming behind his spectacles. "Brilliant, Vizier. The people may be fooled by rhetoric, but the treasury deals only in quantifiable fact. When Abu Nawas is forced to present the cosmic crud to the royal assayer, the simple, stinking truth of the sewage silt will be revealed. The weight will be wrong, the composition will be common clay, and the smell will be utterly and undeniably earthly. His grand gesture will collapse into gross, greasy grime." Jafar moved with swift, silent, bureaucratic efficiency. He issued a formal decree, sealed with the Khalifa's great official stamp and countersigned with Jafar's own meticulous signature. The decree was couched in language of civic duty and scientific rigor. By order of the Grand Vizier, the sample known as the cosmic crud must be immediately secured and deposited in the royal treasury for a comprehensive assay of its unique, newly discovered extraterrestrial elements. The royal lunar launderer, Abu Nawas, is commanded to deliver the entire remaining sample, accompanied by a sworn testimonial regarding its acquisition and composition by the hour of sunset on the morrow. The decree was delivered to Abu Nawas's humble dwelling by a stern, stiff troop of guards, their armor clanking ominously as they marched through his dusty courtyard. Abu Nawas, who had been peacefully counting his gold coins, the chinkle of which had been a delightful, distracting music, paused, the joyful rhythm abruptly broken by the grim metallic clang of official malice. He slowly unrolled the parchment, his eyes scanning the dense, dry text. He understood instantly the trap that had been set. The problem was no longer one of public perception, but of physical proof. The Khalifa had laughed at the lie, but even the Khalifa respected the royal treasury. The cosmic crud, the simple, stinking, unglamorous mud scooped from the bottom of the pool, was his Achilles heel. If he presented the sewage sludge, the laughter would cease, replaced by the deep, damning snort of Jafar's professional triumph. If he refused, he would be guilty of obstructing the imperial treasury, a crime far graver than merely misleading the masses. Abu Nawas retired to his workshop, the silver basin containing the infamous cosmic crud placed ominously before him. He lifted the ladle and stirred the dark, dreary mass. It was thick, viscous, and smelled faintly of stagnant water and decaying weeds. It was the very antithesis of celestial composition. It was merely the muck of the mundane. The rhythmic plop of the sludge falling back into the basin sounded like the slow, steady drip of his impending defeat. He ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He needed a magnificent material solution, a final trick so spectacular that it would transmute the mud into magic. He needed to find a way to make the common clay disappear, or better yet, turn it into gold, or at least something that gleamed just as brightly.
The sound of Jafar's thumping military efficiency seemed to echo in the dark corners of the room. The challenge was set, and the fate of Baghdad's greatest prankster rested on the transformation of a bucket of brown, blighted, boring dirt. The gravity of the crisis of the crud settled upon Abu Nawas with the depressing, dull weight of wet earth. He spent the entire night in his small, smoky workshop, the stench of the sludge a constant, suffocating reminder of Jafar's tactical superiority. He couldn't spin rhetoric to change the chemical composition of stagnant silt, nor could he simply dispose of the basin. Jafar's spies were surely skulking in the shadows, waiting for a misplaced clink or clatter. The solution had to be dramatic, deceptive, and most importantly, instantaneous, forcing the vizier to witness the mystical metamorphosis firsthand. Abu Nawas decided to leverage the public's perception of his recent title. He was a celestial silver plater, therefore the transformation of the crud must appear to be an act of intense controlled transmutation, not mere substitution. He would claim the crud was not dirt, but a hyper-concentrated form of lunar energy that needed to be purified by fire. His plan required 3 elements: a magnificent magical apparatus, a compelling chemical cacophony, and an undeniable elemental exchange. First, he sought out the city's best potter, Master Hakim, a man famed for his enormous high-heat kilns and his deep, resounding, booming laugh. Abu Nawas approached Hakim with a face of grave, professional purpose. "Master Hakim," he announced, his voice hushed with false reverence, "I require the use of your most powerful kiln, the one whose furnace roars like 1,000 trapped dragons. The cosmic crud is not simple sludge, it is an elemental engine. When heated, it must shed its mundane moisture and condense into pure celestial quartz. This requires the fiercest fire and a forging fervor of unbearable intensity." Hakim, who possessed more artistic spirit than business sense, was immediately captivated by the prospect of burning moon dirt in his kiln. The sound of the furnace panting and hissing was the perfect backdrop for the upcoming sham. Next, Abu Nawas went to the back alleys of the spice market, seeking out an old, wizened merchant known for selling volatile, esoteric compounds, gunpowder, sulfur, and various aromatic, quick-burning resins that produced thick, colorful smoke. He needed a sensory overload, a loud, stinging, sight-obscuring sensory spectacle. "I require powders that pop and hiss," Abu Nawas demanded. "Compounds that create confusion and a convincing cloud. Substances that shall seem to sting the very atmosphere, signifying the struggle of transmutation." He bought sacks of finely ground resin and sulfur, which smelled like a devil's den and promised a spectacular smoky session. Finally, the elemental exchange. Abu Nawas couldn't produce gold, but he could produce clarity. He procured a small, perfect, unblemished piece of naturally occurring rock crystal, a simple, silent, shimmering stone often found in the mountains, which he would call the crystalline core. He also filled a small, heavy silver vial with pure, clear water, sealed tightly. This clear water, he would claim, was the purified lunar lather, the moon's concentrated spirit of silver. He engineered the kiln with a secret, detachable compartment at the rear, easily accessible for a quick, sleight-of-hand exchange while the furnace was at its loudest and smokiest. He carefully scooped the vast majority of the real rancid sludge into a large, heat-resistant clay pot, leaving only a tiny residue of the real crud in the original silver basin to maintain a semblance of continuity. The day of the delivery arrived, heralded by Jafar's arrogant, anticipatory approach.
Jafar, accompanied by Professor Hamid and a small, stiff delegation of treasury officials, found Abu Nawas already waiting in the potter's yard, standing next to the enormous, fire-breathing kiln. The sound of the furnace was a continuous, deafening roar, making conversation nearly impossible. "Vizier Jafar," Abu Nawas shouted over the din, pointing at the kiln, his face slick with sweat and theatrical exertion. "The cosmic crud is too volatile. It cannot be weighed. Its impurities must first be burned away in the furnace of the firmament. Witness now the ritual of refinement. Only the pure essence shall remain." He held up the clay pot containing the sludge, which looked terrifyingly dark and dangerous against the bright background of the blazing furnace. The intense heat of the kiln, a fierce, ferocious whoosh, made Jafar and his entourage instinctively step back, their silk robes and stiff demeanor visibly softening under the oppressive, powerful heat. Abu Nawas had transformed a confrontation over mud into a confrontation with fire itself, shifting the battlefield from the bureaucratic ledger to the blazing, unpredictable belly of the beast. The sheer, screaming sound of the furnace was the first sign that Jafar's simple, sensible scheme was already spectacularly spinning out of his control. The ritual of refinement was a masterful manipulation of light, heat, and sound, designed to overload Jafar's senses and shatter his skeptical certainty. Abu Nawas, transformed into a frenzied alchemist, directed the proceedings with loud guttural shouts that barely cut through the deafening roar of the massive kiln. The heat radiating from the furnace was a physical wall, forcing the vizier and his delegation to maintain a safe, skeptical distance. The entire potter's yard was a tableau of chaotic, controlled confusion. Abu Nawas, wearing thick leather gloves, ceremoniously placed the large, sludge-filled clay pot into the white-hot core of the kiln with a heavy, resonating clang. He then began the chemical cacophony. He dramatically produced the volatile compounds purchased earlier. With a piercing, prolonged cry that sounded like an ancient incantation, he threw generous handfuls of the aromatic resin and sulfur onto the glowing coals surrounding the pot. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The resins flared up with a magnificent, blinding whoosh of scarlet and orange flame, while the sulfur ignited with thick, acrid yellow smoke that billowed outwards in blinding clouds, accompanied by sharp, continuous hissing and snaking sounds. "Behold, the sacrificial smoke!" Abu Nawas yelled, his voice strained and hoarse, his face a grim, fiery mask in the flashing light. "The impurities of the terrestrial taint are being purged. The vile vapors are the venom leaving the vital essence. The moon dirt struggles to shed its slum-soaked skin." Jafar and the treasury officials, already choking on the sharp, sulfurous fumes and flinching from the intensity of the heat and the explosive popping sounds, instinctively covered their faces. Their meticulous notes and formal manners dissolved under the physical assault of the senses. Jafar, blinded by the smoke and deafened by the crackle and roar of the furnace, found his clear, clinical thoughts dissolving into panicked uncertainty. Was this genuine transmutation? Was he witnessing the raw, terrifying power of the cosmos being channeled by this madman? During the height of the chaotic sensory distraction, Abu Nawas performed the elemental exchange, while one assistant loudly banged a large, hollow copper drum with a hypnotic, rhythmic thump, thump, thump near the front of the kiln, creating a perfect auditory shield. Abu Nawas swiftly moved to the back. With lightning-fast fingers, he opened the secret panel, pulled out the pot of now steaming, slightly baked mud, and replaced it with a much smaller, pre-baked clay vessel, containing only the crystalline core, the simple, gleaming rock crystal, covered in a fine layer of white ash. The entire operation took less than 10 heartbeats,
swallowed by the smoke, the roar, and the thunderous thumping drum. He returned to the front, wiping his brow with a gesture of exhausted triumph. The flames began to subside, leaving behind a thick, swirling gray haze. The roar of the furnace settled into a steady, intense hum. "The moment of sublimation approaches," Abu Nawas gasped, collapsing onto a stool, feigning total exhaustion. "The mud is melted, the dross is destroyed. Now let us wait for the cooling. The great heat has done its work, only the pure principle remains." Jafar, coughing and wiping ash from his silk robes, glared suspiciously at the now quiet kiln. He knew a trick had occurred. The sulfur smell was too strong, the fire too fierce. But what was the trick? He had witnessed the mud go in, and the sensory chaos had been too complete for him to confirm anything else. His scientific accomplice, Professor Hamid, looked utterly disheveled, his spectacles fogged, muttering about the high thermal dynamics and the unusual chemical reactions of the celestial elements. Jafar's trap, requiring quantifiable evidence, was about to be sprung, but Abu Nawas had cleverly weaponized the process itself, using the sheer spectacular simulation of science to defeat actual scientific observation. Jafar could only wait, his teeth grinding audibly, listening to the slow tick-tock of the cooling kiln, the seconds feeling like heavy, damning hammers against his skull. The transformation was complete, shrouded in smoke and deafening sound, leaving only the promise of a magnificent, manufactured material mystery. The cooling process was agonizingly slow for Vizier Jafar, but Abu Nawas played the role of the patient, pious purifier perfectly, occasionally muttering prayers and wiping imaginary sweat from his brow. Finally, with a dramatic flourish timed to perfection, Abu Nawas retrieved the smaller, ash-coated clay vessel from the kiln's inner chamber. He held the pot carefully, solemnly, presenting it to the assembled delegation. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the smell of sulfur and silent suspicion. Jafar stepped forward, his expression stern, his mind racing for a final, factual rebuttal. "Abu Nawas, the original basin contained a vast quantity of sludge. You now present a paltry pot. Where is the rest? Does your purification process destroy royal property?" Abu Nawas fixed Jafar with a look of profound, pitying superiority. "Vizier, you are calculating common clay, not cosmic composition. The cosmic crud was 99% mundane moisture. The aggressive heat of the furnace of the firmament reduced the material back to its original pure, undiluted essence. Look, this is the core, the very concentrated seed of lunar light." He slowly, carefully, tinkling the object with his ladle, removed the small ash-covered object. He rinsed it with a splash of pure water from a nearby ceremonial pitcher, revealing the crystalline core, the rock crystal, gleaming faintly in the afternoon light. It was small, unassuming, yet undeniably beautiful and strangely clear. "Behold," Abu Nawas proclaimed, holding the tiny shimmering stone high. "This is not sludge, this is the moonstone, the residual essence of the celestial sphere." The purification was so perfect that the material transmuted from foul fluid filth back into its original concentrated mineral form. Its value is not measured by its weight, Vizier, but by its purity. It is a concentrated shard of the moon itself, an artifact whose worth is spiritual, not simple silver shillings. The treasury officials murmured amongst themselves, their logical minds unable to argue against the visual evidence of the crystal's clarity and the convincing narrative of the preceding fiery ritual.
Professor Hamid peered at the stone, adjusting his spectacles, unable to identify the simple rock, but unwilling to deny its stunning, successful substitution. Jafar, defeated, spat his final furious question. And what of the immense, expensive bar of lunar lather? Did it, too, transmute into a trivial trinket? The royal treasury demands an account of that colossal cube of concentrated cost. Abu Nawas smiled, the look radiating smug, satisfied success. He pointed to the large custom-made soap basin, which now sat empty. Ah, Vizier, the lunar lather is the final essential element. It has served its purpose by cleansing the moon and is now, alas, exhausted. It has spent all its sacred suds and must be recharged. He presented Jafar with the sealed silver vial of clear water, the second part of his exchange. This, Vizier, is the vial of lunar virtue, the concentrated cleansing power of the lunar lather condensed and collected from the last of the suds. It must now be placed under the light of the new replated crescent moon for exactly one full cycle to reabsorb its cosmic conductivity. Only then can we ensure the moon's continued cleanliness. This vial is the ultimate asset, the guarantee of our golden glow, the lunar launderer's ongoing, essential, and everlasting effort. The Khalifa, who had been watching the entire confrontation from a discreet balcony, descended into the courtyard, clapping slowly, the sound a sharp, stinging rhythm of final judgment. Abu Nawas, you are not merely a prankster, you are a genius of governance. You have turned a bucket of bog muck into a bank account. You have established a need for continuous royal expenditure on a perpetually empty bar of soap. And you have given us a moonstone. This small shard of clarity is worth more than its weight in gold, for it reminds us that the greatest wealth is found in the joy of deception done diligently. The Khalifa personally presented Abu Nawas with a magnificent, bejeweled case for the moonstone and decreed that the vial of lunar virtue be given a place of honor in the royal treasury. He then ordered Jafar to personally supervise the next recharging of the lunar lather. Jafar, beaten down by the sheer absurdity and elegance of the scheme, could only bow stiffly, the silk of his robes making a defeated drap sound against the stone. Abu Nawas, the royal lunar launderer, walked away, the soft, smooth moonstone clutched in his hand, having successfully transmuted a local crisis into a long-term, lucrative career, all thanks to the simple, spectacular power of a lie well lathered and brilliantly baked. The moon shone down, now full and bright, silently applauding the only man on Earth clever enough to monetize the waxing and waning of a world.